The world is going to hell, and you're all presently a part of it in the state you are now in, and you don't know what I'm talking about. You agree to the evil and the sickness and the violence of this world because that is what you love, because that is a part of your present nature, and you don't understand what I'm talking about. Because you live in a single world. You live in one world. The only world you know, self-enclosed, self-centered, touchy, sensitive, instantly having your feelings hurt at the slightest affront. When someone doesn't give you what you want, don't agree with you. When someone doesn't agree with your sickness, you hate them. You have a chance here tonight to begin to change all that. If you have an ounce of sense, and you have to decide whether you have just an ounce of sense, because that is in question. Serious question. So we'll talk a little bit about the one world which you presently occupy. To you, the only world that exists is the world made up of your present experiences, your past experiences, the things you want to get, the things you hope to happen, based on the memories of when you were a little child and how nice things were then, when you graduated from high school, how beautiful the world looked. And you wish you could go back to that, where you had no responsibility and your illusion was so tightly in place you thought that was a happy world. If you could just start with high school over again. To begin to get healthy, to begin to escape this present one world that you live in, you have to begin to comprehend through hard inner work that there is a second world, another world, outside of the present self-centered, egotistical, hellish one you now occupy. And you all live in hell. You live in torment. You lie about everything. This is the world you live in. You talk about love. You have no idea what the word means, and I'll give you a proper definition of it later on. You have to begin to understand that you in your present state are your state of hell. You're your own punishment, and there's no other punishment outside of that which you yourself invite and inflict upon yourself because of your ignorance and your refusal to explore beyond the fires of your present mental attitudes, your fiery feelings. You refuse to explore because you're a coward as well. All devils in hell are cowards. You won't take one step outside of that. You'd rather stay in there with the rest of your devil friends inside you and outside you, so you can all put on the gigantic stage performance that you're all even spiritual. And you're children of the devil. And nothing can be done with you if this is where you want to stay. Nothing. You're going to die the way you lived. If you have an ounce of sense, you will listen to what you can learn here in these classes, and you will begin to see, to your great horror and shock and disbelief at first, that I have just accurately described your present nature. And then as you are horrified, shocked beyond belief at what you see, you're not looking at yourself properly. You're seeing yourself according to your pleasant self-images, according to how your friends flatter you, and you flatter yourself about how nice you are, which is a lie. The observation of, which takes a lot of courage, a lot of sustained courage, of the hell, the devil that is you, begins to perform a miracle, a really religious miracle, a truly spiritual miracle, the only miracle that you need in this life. It begins to perform the miracle through many, many details which we've gone into in this class and we'll go through again. It will begin to destroy you being the kind of a self-destructive human being, man or woman, that you now are. As you begin to destroy this one world that you now occupy, every corner of it that you destroy makes room for a second world. Now, this second world, you will not understand it because there's no way you can understand it on your present level. You'll only go into imagination. I'll try to describe it. I'll do the best I can with words. But I want to warn you that you'll go into imagination based on what you want this other world to be. For example, where you get all the women you want, or you get all the men you want, or all the money you want, or everybody bows to your wishes, or you stay young until you're 80 years old, or whatever you want. Or you want your ideas about God to endure, so you think God is going to save you. You rejected God all your life, now you want him to save you. Boy, are you in for a shock. You begin to suspect that you have indeed lived in a purely self-centered world where nothing counted but your blabbermouthery of what you want, which you impose on everybody you meet, and they impose it on you, and you drive each other nuts, drain each other dreadfully, people that you live with and strangers, anyone. You begin to suspect how insane you really are. It's very, very curious, but the awareness of insanity is the beginning of sanity, right? Isn't it? Purely insane people don't want this class. They may come once out of accident, a friend invite them, or they saw a notice or something. They may come once, but their insanity feels the threat to itself in this class, and they go away in lies, of course, always lying. Anyone who leaves this class leaves in a lie, and you have doomed yourself for eternity. As you begin to suspect your insanity, it begins to destroy it, because this is honesty about your state, which is light about your state, and that light itself is the beginning, the bare beginning of this other world. Now you can begin to see the difference in the way you begin to behave out there, down where you work, at the home, driving in traffic. You can begin to see that whereas you used to get mad at everything and cover it up with a phony smile, of course, that there is another world for which you can live from, in which the very same incident can happen to you, but because the devil in you has been at least weakened to a little bit maybe, you can begin to react to this incident not from the old world of self-centeredness anymore, but from a world of purity which has no concern with how you're treated out there, because there's no egotistical self that demands that you treat me rightly. You're beginning to suspect something. You can hardly believe it. It's so marvelous. You're beginning to suspect, which is a blow to the vanity, that there really is another world to exist in besides the one you ever presently lived in up until your present 20, 30, 60, 80 years. So your hard work on yourself continues through these principles you're learning here, and through books, through studying, through loving truth more than you love your sickness. You begin to suspect the existence of this second world, which always must grow at the expense of the old world. Remember I said part of the old world falls away, and immediately the vacuum, the space is filled up with the new world. The darkness falls away, the lightness comes in to take its place. So now you have two worlds. Then comes another stage, a more fascinating stage, and more fascinating as you go along, where you come right back to where there's only one world again. You've gone from one to two to one world again, because you've finally seen that this first world was manufactured, created, invented by your negative nature in order to remain a tyrant unto itself, so that you could be the center, the dictator, the commander, the little god of this first world. But as this vanity, self-centeredness, began to fade because you saw its destructiveness and its falseness, and it was unnecessary, As it begins to fade, then the first false world fades away as far as directing your life is concerned, although you can still remember it on the level of pure memory. And if you remember what an idiot you behaved like yesterday, 10 years ago. So the memory of the first world remains, but because you've learned what it means to cancel time, to cancel yourself, which lives in time, then there is no bad, wrong, self-centered connection with that memory. So the only thing that remains is the one world, this world of being aware all the time, but at the same time, this new one world consists also of the world of right thought, of right daily activities. You go out and earn your living. That's right, isn't it? You have to earn a living or you won't get money and you won't get bread on your table. So that's a right world too. A right world of proper recreation, whatever you like to do. You like to travel a little bit, or you like to read a book, whatever. You like to grow flowers or whatever. So you finally see you've moved from the one self-centered world to two worlds, which is vague. You don't understand what's going on. And finally, the two worlds vanish so that there's only one world, but this one world is now operating in many different varied ways, all of them proper. But you, living from your new nature, authentically born again, not phonily, but really born again through the death of your old nature, react and live and handle every world that you encounter, day or night. Handle it properly, because you're not handling it at all anymore, are you? To the degree that you are handling your life right today, you have messed it up today, right? All right. So something other than you, which you can't define according to your past, or you'll get all mixed up. You'll go into phraseology and go into quotations. This new nature now is able to operate and handle everything perfectly in your day. If you want to cook a good dinner for yourself, you go into memory, proper memory on the intellectual level of how to cook a good dinner for yourself. No problem there. You meet another person, you meet a person who is rude, or you meet a person who is nice, you meet a person who's pathetic, you meet a person who's old and helpless, you meet a little child who comes running up to show you his new toy. You're so wide awake, living so fully in this new world. Your mind is alert and flexible. It can jump back and forth, and it will know exactly how to handle every... You could talk to that child 1 second, talk to it properly, notice the toy, talk with the child for a minute. It's a split second, someone yells at you angrily because he's sick, and you know how to handle that person. One world handling everything perfectly. What I've said to you is not a description of something that is in a book, simply in a book somewhere, or something that makes supposed to make you feel good, but something which you, through long hard work right in this class, because I doubt very much you're going to find it elsewhere. You might, but it's so seldom to find a class that doesn't lie to you. Through long hard work with the principles of this class, those of you who have been here for some time, those of you who are new, can experience this world for yourself, and then you'll know how true it is that the truth is here. If you go away, if you want to remain lazy, if you want to continue to lie to yourself in the future, as you've lied to yourself in the past, then you have indeed doomed yourself. And guess what you've doomed yourself to? Can you think of anything more dreadful than for you to have to live with you for the rest of your life? That is what hell is, and you know it and I know it. Write down a sentence, please. A correct definition of love is the urge for self-development which wants to give me something better than I now have. A correct definition of love is the urge for self-development which wants to give me something better than I now have. Truth, reality, God is always doing its best to break through our thick heads, to develop us spiritually, psychologically, mentally, to develop us so that we don't have to endure every day, don't have to go through today, or tomorrow rather, what we went through today. What's the problem? The resistance to it. Your fear that truth is trying to take something away from you when indeed it's trying to give something to you. Your refusal to slow down and take a look at yourself as you really are. Now look, you have been babied all your lives and you swallowed it whole. When you were 5 or 6, it was quite proper for your parents to sympathize with you when you fell down and hurt your knee. You broke your toy. It is quite proper for Mom or Papa to explain that toys do get broken. And come on, I'll put a little bandage on your knee and 5 minutes later it won't hurt anymore. That is proper. Unfortunately, that habit of liking to be catered to, of liking to be babied, gets very deeply ingrained in men and women, some who are 40, some who are 60, some who are 80. And you would rather have that than the love of God, which is trying to develop you beyond the point of you loving to be babied by other people, to be told that it isn't your fault. Never mind whether it's your fault or someone else's fault. It's your fault if you fail to develop inwardly, because you have been given an opportunity all your life, and I'll tell you, you have been given one tonight. You have been given the opportunity to begin to find out what authentic love is within yourself by no longer refusing what God Almighty wants to give to you. Unfortunately, you can't have two gods, unfortunately, for your vanity. If you want the vanity of your childishness of thinking that other people must still be blamed 30 years after they hurt you, maybe they did hurt you, they were sick. And so you remain sick by hating them for 30 years. That's your sickness. Little children, time to grow up. Time to stop finding someone to blame for the way you are today. You are responsible the way you are tonight, because you could have started 5 years ago, you could have started 10 years ago, to begin to see that you have a power inside of you that could begin to help you understand you need not hate people and use that as your source of false strength. Don't you know that hatred is a source of false strength? This is your strength. This is what you want to keep you intact in the face of a crisis. This is why you break down, because you have no strength at all. And you can't figure it out. You can't figure it out when you're so brave in your own imagination, how you tremble and shake at the smallest crisis, the smallest disapproving facial expression on another person, and it throws you off for the next half hour. And you feel bad. You feel that they don't like you anymore. What a victim you are of your own wrong thinking. To grow up spiritually, mentally, to grow up means you're going to have to be able to take a lot more than you are now willing to take, which is why I mentioned you had better give up your demand to be pleased, to be babied, to be catered to other people to treat you. Don't touch me. Don't touch me where you shouldn't touch me or I'll get mad. And if you've got people like that in your life, get rid of them. You'll never get rid of the baby in you until you get rid of the babies in your life out there. Psychologically, not necessarily physically. You may have to live with a 50-year-old, 5-year-old baby. And some of you may just do that. You certainly work with them and you live in a world with them. And you don't even have the courage to say to yourself, I am not going to play the game with you anymore down at that office or in that home or with your relatives or anywhere else. The friends you are trying to please will stab you in the back, and they're doing it anyway mentally, and you don't even know it. That's how dumb you are. Do you really think you're liked by your friends? They hate themselves. Oh, they have nice, pleasant smiles, and they offer you a drink. They invite you over. And you don't even have brains enough to notice the topic of their conversation. When they're with you, it's always about them, isn't it? Sometime, instead of you blabbing about your life, remain silent and watch how they are compelled, forced to blab about their life because they live in this one old world. The sensing of that might throw your attention back on yourself and see how you always do the same thing. And maybe out of that, you'll remember what I told you tonight and beginning to work hard on yourself to break through to the second world. You'll go out of here, some of you. You'll go out of here, out of this door, exactly as you came in here. Sound asleep, not having heard a word I said. Why? Because you're utterly terrified. And the incredible thing, the fantastic thing, is that you fear your own release from hell. That is what you fear. And you know why? Because you don't want there to be any other world but what you call your world. And your world is the same thing as hell. And your desires are the flames of it. And your petty jealousies of other people are other flames of it. And because you live in hell, you have no conscience. You'll drag everyone down to your level. You have no choice but to do that. Evil spreads evil while calling itself decency. When are you going to sit back quietly someday, all by yourself? Don't have anyone else with you. They'll do their best to keep you where you are now. Sit down all alone. Don't have your husband, wife, nobody. You sit down quietly by yourself and begin to reflect upon what you've heard tonight. Reflect upon what your life has been from the day you were born up until this present point, and have the utter honesty to see that it's been nothing but confusion and hurt and fear and bitterness and desperation. I will guarantee you that if you will do this much, if you will admit that you're desperate, that you're jealous, that you're hateful, that you can't make up your mind over the smallest decision, that you have no dependency upon your own real higher spirit alone, if you will have this honesty, you will begin to smash out in a very small way this present world that is holding you so tightly, that's suffocating you Now, if you make the mistake of going out of this room tonight and distracting yourself, or by listening to your fears, then you'll just have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. As I said before, there's no punishment worse than that. Now listen, and I'll stop with this and we'll have a break. I will tell you exactly what will happen to all of you without exception, to you new people in particular, when you leave the class tonight. I want to tell you what will happen, not to show you how smart I am, but if you'll think about it and simply understand that I understand what will happen to you, it will give you a better chance not to be engulfed by sleep as you go out here, and that sleep will smother the remembrance of everything that you've heard here. You will leave the class tonight when we finally finish, about an hour or so from now. You will leave individually in a state of fear and apprehension. Each one of you, no exceptions. You will leave in this state because the false parts of you have been scared practically to death by what you've heard here tonight. Now, the evil parts of you are very cunning, and they will tell you that the fear is based on the fact that the truth, or that man too included, the class too, are trying to take something valuable away from you. Therefore you must not listen. The devil is lying to you and saying you must not listen to the truth because it will take something valuable away from you. Now I order you not to listen to that fearful lie. I have given you an order and you follow it. If you don't, woe unto you. And most of you are so asleep you won't even be aware of what I'm saying when you go out of here. Therefore I have to give it to you and then I'm through then. You will refuse the fearful accusations. You will fear any hateful thoughts that come to you toward what you've heard here tonight, toward this class. You will refuse to listen to it. Do you know why you should refuse to listen to it? Because your eternity as a human being, as a man or woman on earth, does depend upon you refusing to listen to the falsehood to which you have listened up to this point of your life, and which has made your life what it is. If you want to continue the way you have lived up to this point, then you go out of here and continue to listen to the lies from yourself and from your sick friends. Continue to listen to them as you listened to them up to the past. You have a fighting chance tonight. It's so difficult to break through that you need to put everything on your side. One way you can put everything on your side is to come to every single class, and don't you let anyone you came with keep you away from this class. Anyone who tries to keep you from coming to here is a devil. And if you listen to him, that's the devil in you listening to him or her, and you've sealed your doom. It's a very beautiful things that you've heard tonight. This is the message of deliverance. This is the message of authentic love, because some of you have felt the urging to self-development that wants to give you something better than what you've had up to this point in your life. Now you listen to that for your sake. Write down a sentence, please. My decisions are made by my actual nature. Therefore, their quality is decided by my actual nature. Joan, read that back as I said it, please.
My decisions are made by my actual nature. Therefore, their quality is my... I didn't get
Their quality is decided by their actual nature. Therefore, their quality is decided by their actual nature.
You want this a third time?
Read the whole thing now, please.
My decisions are made by my actual nature. Therefore, their quality is decided by my actual nature.
Yeah, okay, fine. Leland, read it out loud again, and then we'll have it on tape for sure.
Okay. My decisions are made by my actual nature. Therefore, their quality is decided by my actual nature.
If you've ever wondered why your decisions always get you into grief or lead you into more confusion or get you nowhere really, wouldn't that be a good idea to look at the nature behind them, who is making these decisions? And besides, you should understand by this time that you don't make your decisions at all. Rather, they make you. Your decisions make you. You know why? Because you're still on the level of compulsion, of mechanicalness, where you don't think. You can't think, should I do this or shouldn't I do that? What you do say is, I want that. That is what decides the decision. And that's what gets you into trouble. The only way to raise the results of our life is to raise the level of our nature of what it actually is, not that what we claim it is, pretend it is, imagine it is, insist it is. If you're getting sour apples, you're a sour apple tree. Let's see the hands of the sour apple trees. Crab apples.
I'm a golden delicious.
What did I tell you about fibbing? All right, we're in open discussion and questions. And if you like tonight, besides just asking straight questions or making a comment, if you like, you may also have a third choice of simply mentioning a topic, a subject, a theme that you'd like to just have me discuss. Or perhaps you'd like to make a comment on, and maybe I'll comment back. A subject, a theme, anyone you like, anything. Yes, Tom, you're on.
Suffering.
Suffering.
Yes.
You want it discussed a little bit?
Briefly and concisely.
Yes, all right. Suffering can be discussed in many ways, and which we have done, but consists simply of you confining yourself to your world made up of your, what you call your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, your destinations, your hopes, your dreams. But confinement is always unnatural. As long as we remain purely on the level of the intellect, then we simply go from one prison cell in the enormous prison, the prison of our intellect functioning incorrectly. The prison has 10,000 cells. It has the cell of marriage, it has a cell of divorce, has a cell of success, a cell of failure, a cell of youth, a cell of old age. It has 10,000s of cells, does it not? The life of the ordinary person is lived from going from marriage to divorce, to young man to old man, temporary success, temporary failure, back to what he calls success again. But all within the same prison system, the whole penitentiary. And you can prove this for yourself easily enough by noticing that no matter what cell you're in, you're confined. Any of you ever been trapped in a marriage? Huh? How many of you were trapped after the marriage? Same thing. Why? Why? Because your mind is still in prison. We're here to understand that suffering consists of remaining in going from one intellectual concept to another one. I'll be happy if I get divorced. You're not. You're going to be as wretched as before. To see that moving from one cell to the other is not changing our position, our spiritual or psychological position. And if you connect this with what we talked about earlier, if you can begin to see that it does nothing for you to dye your hair to look 10 years younger. It does nothing for you at all except you look a little sillier than before. You begin to see that you're still in the prison. Now. Come on, Sally. Getting tired. Look, getting tired of deceiving yourself, you can begin to wonder whether there just might be something outside of this prison, which is the beginning of the way out, because you're going to, instead of from one cell to another, see, the prison is a very secure place, isn't it? Don't they feed you every day in prison? Don't they tell you when to get up? They ring the bell, everybody up. They tell you when to go to work, all regimented, fine. You feel, quote mark, secure. When you want to, are able to lose this security and are willing to start exploring something outside of the prison, you begin to maybe get to a certain prison cell from which you can see that there are woods out there, and there's a beautiful lake out there. It's nice out there. It's something you've seen before is bars and machinery and halls and stuff. You begin to suspect another world out there, which surely exists. All right, and then I'll finish the comment. As long as you want to go into any one of the cells, throw yourself down on the little narrow bunk, tummy down, bury your head in the pillow, and cry, daydream, be bitter. You are loving your suffering more than you love the possibility of getting out of the prison. We are here to scream at each other, little tiny crybaby, get yourself off of that cot, turn yourself over, get up on your feet, get out of that cell, walk down the hall, walk over here, walk over there, get up there, and go to work to make your escape out of that prison. Instead of being a 5-year-old crybaby who loves to call attention to himself, living in his little immersed world of crying and hoping that other people, next cell hears him and comes over and gives him a pansy. We're here to shake each other off our cots. If you say, please go away and let me sleep, then we'll go away. Or rather, you'll go away.
But we call this
Excuse me.
we call this prison our marvelous life, and we're happy. We're not really suffering.
Yes. Anybody who has to tell you they're happy is a liar. Why do you have to tell us you're so happy? You're so spiritual. You're so well controlled. Your life is so stable. Just wait till the next little tiny crisis and see what a big liar you are. If you want to be a liar, you won't last long in this class, I'll guarantee you. Go out and lie with your lying friends and destroy each other in the process.
Vernon, is our receptivity to work ideas and truth sort of in proportion to our capacity to remember ourselves, or our efforts to remember ourselves?
Say that again, Lorraine, please. In another way, if you like.
While we're in a mechanical level,
Okay.
how do we increase our receptivity or stay open to these things rather than to shut ourselves off?
I understand, yes. All right. I wish, and if any of you can help me on this, please do. What would be a spiritual synonym for the word suspicion? You know, I don't like the word suspicion. You know, it sounds negative. You know, a little neurotic suspicion. What's the word, Leland?
Sensing.
Huh?
Sensing.
Sensing is not bad.
Doubt.
No, not too good.
Inquisitive.
That's good. Inquisitive. I like that.
Feeling
Feeling. You know what I'm getting at. Go ahead.
not so sure anymore?
All right. But all right, well, back to the word suspicion, but you understand we're using it in a very special way. A suspicion that maybe because for example, you have heard in this class how mixed up we are, what liars we are, how deceptive we are. If that part is true, a suspicion that maybe the other part is true, that there is a way out. Stick with the suspicion, if the bad part is true, maybe the good part is true too. But if you block it off, if you block off the insight into how horrible you actually are, what you lie about everything, you don't even know it. You don't know how you lie about everything. It's become a hardened habit. You get that fixed smile on your face. Begin to suspect that that part is true. Then you begin to suspect that you are the creator of your own sense of confinement. Your refusal to listen to the bad facts block off the next step. You see, you can only go from observing the negative to freedom from the negative, which automatically produces the authentic positive. If you start with a positive, you're starting with imagination based on flattering self-descriptions of yourself, and you're self-divided, and you say love while hating. And I'll warn you, anybody, you listening to this tape, you go too far in calling your hatred love, and that will harden to the point where you'll be absolutely hopeless. You will die in your sins. Nobody, God himself, won't be able to get through to you. You have lied to the point where you're steel, a block of steel. I'm not saying this to frighten or intimidate, but rather because we want to work here in this class, and we want to understand that. And every one of you, including myself, to know people, dozens of people who have hardened themselves beyond rescue. And you keep your mouth shut about this sort of thing to them. You know they can't hear, they don't want to hear. And we don't want to get into that state ourselves. Thank God we can catch ourselves in time. Yeah, yes, Gordon.
Sometimes I have a fear that lessening the conditioned self and the images will interrupt my practical life, or will make it worse. Not worse, but...
Well, you understand that it can only get better in two ways. As you study these truths, your practical daily life, your life out earning money, taking care of your home, whatever, has to get better from two viewpoints. One, you'll simply use your mind better. You use your mind better, do ordinary things. You're practical, efficient. You won't be late as much. You'll be much more efficient. Your memory in the proper place will work better. Secondly, you won't be nagged by other things. You'll simply be free of the whole mess. It's not important to you to be rich anymore. It's not important to you to be impressive to other people anymore. It's not important to you to prove yourself. Stop, look, listen to what I just said. I said it is no longer important or necessary to prove who you think you are, because you've seen through the sham that you were this person or that person who must keep up the show. I'm a good citizen. I'm a generous person. I'm a non-troublemaker. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm an intelligent voter. All these terms, including the term justice, by the way, lose their meaning to you. Justice only applies to people on the social level in this hypnosis of humanity that we're talking about. As you grow inwardly, ascend inwardly, the word justice and injustice lose all meaning for you. Those terms have meaning only to those living in self-centeredness, demanding their rights. You just demand your rights and destroy yourself. You have a right to wake up. Isn't that something?
As we start to transcend them, do these negative imps, or call them devils, will they change into angels or will they die?
No, they go away. You could never make an angel out of a devil. You can only boot the devil out. And I'll tell you what will happen to the devil as far as you're concerned. He fades both in frequency of appearance and in power. He fades. Finally, he's gone out of your life altogether. And the empty space. You like the word angels? Fine. Angels, good thoughts, right thoughts, true thoughts, cosmic thoughts take their place. How many of you are tormented by devils? Raise your hand, every one of you. Every one of you, raise your hand, mentally at least, because I know you are. Yes, Tom?
When you ask for a synonym for suspicion, it could be said, tormented to the verge of insanity. That would be a synonym phrase for suspicion that there's something wrong with your life.
All right, I got the connection finally, yes. All right. Yes.
Vernon, will you discuss this? I know you've discussed it before, but perhaps for the new people. If we're not our past, and we're not our thoughts, we're not our bodies, then what are we?
Why do you ask? How many know what I'm going to say next? Who is asking? Who's asking the question?
Who thinks she is?
Huh? Is there a little bit of anxiety about...
Oh, of course, yeah.
Do you have the courage to drop the question, to not ask it? That'll put an end to Sarah, you know. Anyone who answers a question like that is lying to you. I mean, he could answer a comment. You understand what I mean? If he falls for the wrong question and starts to tell you what you'll be like, speaking unconsciously, he's deceiving everyone in the room, not knowing what is going on. There's no way you can describe yourself. There's no way you can know what you'll be like, because there's no one there to be like anything. Even if you say, well, in that state I'll be free. You say, I'll be free. Who is judging what freedom is? Huh? The man in prison, the man right in the middle of that prison is telling you, I'm free at last. Free at last.
Vernon, in one of the classes a little while back, you said that Vernon would have, in order for Vernon to become warmer, he would have to appear colder to us.
Yes.
Could you go into that a little bit? Or?
Yes. You see, when I say some of the stern things like I said tonight, which are quite necessary, certain parts of you, not all of you, some of you see through me, and parts of you see through me. You know what's going on, that is. It's to various degrees with each one of you. Certain parts of you will wonder what's going on at that sternness. And if you can watch yourself being afraid of what is said, or being afraid of me, too, you can begin to study the fear in you, which is where the lesson really is. Do you mean to tell me that you're going to sit out there and let the man in this chair intimidate you, frighten you? You're here to be free. And being free means to be free of fear of anything I say. So you have fear in you at something that I say. You investigate why you get afraid of something that I say. And if you were to track it way, way down to the very bottom of it, you'll find that only a false part in you were afraid at what I said. The truth that is in any of you out there never gets disturbed or insulting if I talk about blasphemy. If I say you blasphemy, this is, by the way, a side thought. Blasphemy is calling good evil and calling evil good. That's a form of blasphemy. If I say you had better stop doing that, and you watch yourself react to that, you can begin to see that the fear is in you, and you can begin to work on that to kick it out. Now, when you have finally kicked it out, you will see that it is very, very necessary for me never to compromise not 0.1% with the sickness in every one of you in this class. I'm either going to kick you out of here, either drive you out of here, or have you stay here to submit yourself to the truth so that you can have what your real nature wants to have, which is liberty from your delusions. And it's very difficult to explain, but I see certain things going on all the time with every one of you here in this class, and at a certain time it becomes necessary to leap on certain individuals. It's happening all the time to one degree, but certain times some of you have to get special shocks, and you just wait and see if it isn't necessary, and you may be next. When you go through it, if you accept the lesson, then you'll see why it is necessary for me to do that. Therefore, I appear cold and hard and cruel and egotistical to you at the start. If you will take the lesson, you will thank me for it afterward. And you know what you'll say to yourself? You'll say, thank God Vernon didn't baby me. Thank God he didn't destroy me by babying me. Right? Right. Jim.
You mentioned about taking time and alone and reflecting on the past. And I was kind of going over it in my mind a little bit about that. And I thought, well, unless a person has been here for some time, it would be impossible to be honestly objective when you reflect on the past.
When you what?
Unless you have been to these classes for some time, it would be practically impossible to be honestly objective when you reflect on the past.
Correct. Quite right. It takes time to be honest.
Yeah.
Because we've lied all our lives. You must not, you understand, by the way, especially you new people, you mustn't condemn yourself for being the big liars that you are. You must simply see it as a fact. See it as a fact. If you condemn yourself, then you've formed another self, haven't you? Now you're going to feel guilty and ashamed, and you won't want to come back here to take the next step of understanding that condemning yourself for being evil is another form of evil, very cleverly disguised as repentance or self-change, self-righteousness. To call yourself evil is very evil. You're nothing. You're not evil. You're not good. You're nothing. Tom.
It will take us all a long time to realize how strong the one small right part was that brought us to the class and kept us here in the face of all the darkness it's surrounded by.
Be very grateful to that one very small part, all of you, that's kept you coming back here. That's our hope. Right hope. It's necessary for you to be scolded all the time, though, because you still live in so much persistent dreamland that you're only 1% bad and 99% not a bad woman, not a bad man. You're 99% bad. What is your secret behavior like? How do you really think toward other people? What do you really think about those people you're supposed to like and love? Remember how patient you pretend you are with certain things when you like to blast it with a bomb? What do you really like? This is what we're here to expose, to see how furious we can get, how rageful we can get, how depressed, how sad, how desperate. To see your desperation, admit it, is the first step out of desperation. And you were all desperate people without exception here in this class and listening to this tape. There's one thing that I do see with the clarity I can't tell you about. There's no way I can tell you how clearly I see what I'm going to tell you about. I know how tricky, how deceptive, how evil human nature is. Your human nature may be mine. I know how you can come right up to me and smile and shake my hand and tell me how marvelous a talk it was. I know how you can corner me somewhere else and tell me all the spiritual books you've read, and you can quote exactly from the New Testament and all the great mystics and all that. And I know that you have a devil in you that would blow up the world for 2 cents. All right. The devil in any of you here in this class does not fool me for 1 second. Therefore, when I paddle you, to use Chuck's term, I am telling that devil, now just knock it off. You're wasting your time. If you don't want this, then get out and stay out. Don't think you're kidding me. Now, let me tell you the nice part about doing that. You will get out, and we've got rid of trash. That'll leave the chair vacant for someone who has one good part of him. Get that trash out of here. Secondly, if you have one good part in you and 1,000 devils, one good part of you, then the one good part of you would say to the devils, I know that you didn't like what that man said, but I did. And I sense that he is saying something to you that I can't presently say to you because I don't have the insight or the strength, the courage to do it. So you shut up, and I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to what that man says in spite of you yelling at me and telling me that he's hateful and egotistical and thinks he's a god unto himself and all the other lies. I've heard them all, by the way. You can't think of an original one. I'm going to listen to the truth instead of to you. And maybe we'll continue that sometime, but that's 2 reasons for it. To be slapped down gives you the only chance you have. If you fail the opportunity you have been given when slapped down, there is no hope for you. You will leave and slide into hell. That's right. Slide into it. You're already in it. You'll just slide deeper into it. Hell being a state of self-torment, of suffering, of hatred, of lies, cruelty. Slapping the devil down in this room is the one chance you have of freeing yourself of your devils. Without that, too many of you would go into delusions, into daydreams of thinking that you're a reasonably nice person who is going to become an even nicer person by returning to these classes day after day. The devil doesn't want to learn. The devil can only be booted out. He can't be taught anything. He doesn't want to be taught anything. So the boot is ready every second, and you learn. Now listen, This isn't just concerned with me, it's concerned with every one of you. You remember what I just said, and you begin to be a devil Buddha yourself. The small part of you can begin to rebuke the devil, kick him out. Remember I told you don't tolerate that sort of thing inside of you? As best you can, as weak as you are, you say you're not going to torment me with those thoughts anymore. You may do it, but I'm beginning to get on to you. I'm beginning to get on to you. You've got me. I know you've got me. You've got me 24 hours of the day practically, except for 3 seconds a day. 3 seconds a day, I suddenly remember myself, and I, in a state of clarity for 3 seconds out of 24 hours, I understand that I'm in a little different state, getting a glimpse from the prison cell, you know, looking out the cell, a high one. I got a glimpse of the green woods out there. And boy, I'll tell you, you'll never forget that 3-second glimpse of the woods. Do you know why? It's real. It is real. How can you forget the contrast in the pretty woods and a little stream next to it compared to the hard, cold cell? You can't forget it. Isn't that nice? Don't you want to break out as fast as you can and get out there where it's cool and pretty and not crowded, and you're not chained in, cramped in with all those other animals in there? Aren't you tired of being an animal? Because the prison is also a zoo. Right?
Right.
Do you know sharks? Do you know foxes who trick you? Begin to doubt the wisdom of the impressive liars you have been listening to up to this point in your life. You know that relative yours who knows everything about everything? Stop listening to him. You know that handsome politician you see on television who's mastered the art of putting over his personality on? You stop listening to him. He's asleep.
You talk about emotional lying.
Emotional lying. Try to see the connection between your feelings and when you tell a lie. A lie, to begin with, is on the intellectual level, so to speak. There's a contradiction in you. For example, you want to evade something you did wrong, and so you lie about it. What's your state when you tell the lie? If you see that you're agitated, would that not be an indication that you're telling a lie? For one thing, you're afraid that they're going to see through you. What's your state when you tell a lie? And a lie can be 1,000 things. I've told you, you can even lie in the way you walk. For example, there's 1,000 ways there too. But you ever pretended to be casual? Huh? Weren't you lying by the way you walked? Huh? Or if you ever see a boar coming down the street and you said, "Oh, I'm in a hurry," and so you scurried away? Yeah. Just make your own connection between lying and emotions. And you know that when you're angry, you're lying? When you're angry, no matter what you say, you're lying.
Lying takes a lot of energy, and you also have to remember it exactly, because If the story changes,
Yeah, someone once said a liar must have a good memory. Any of you ever lied to me? Let's see those of you who have lied to me. Come on. You've all lied to me by your manner. Tom.
Yes, not asking us a sincere question would be in a way lying.
A form, yes, indeed, it would. Dottie. Is that Dottie?
Yeah.
Yes.
In other words, your state determines whether you're lying. I'm asking, can you say, is it possible to use the same words, one person in one state and one person conscious, and it wouldn't be a lie in one case and it would in another?
Give us an example of that, Dottie. I only half hear you anyway. Stand up and shout or something.
An example. If you were to talk about love, I suspect it would be the truth. If I were to talk about love, it wouldn't. So my question is this: your state determines whether you're truthful.
Tell me. Oh, yeah, no, that's all, I understand. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Will a lying nature tell lies, trying to pretend that it's an honest nature? Of course it will. You know, do you know that you can tell the truth? You can tell the truth and it can be a lie? Figure that one out.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell the truth and it's a lie? Dorothy.
When you tell the truth mechanically.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. If you say we must back to love again, we must love each other. What is your state saying that? That's a hateful state saying that. A self-centered state always being a hateful state, which is why we don't use the word love very much in this class. Tonight's been a rare exception. Where did I see a hand? Leland?
That's just
Gordon.
If I wanted to impress you by what I said, it would be a lie.
Yes. Do you know something else? This should be encouraging to you. Do you know that a frightened, shy, reticent, inward-turned nature is a lie? Why is it a lie? Somebody tell me. Charlie.
It's not coming from its true self.
That's right. That's good. Isn't that a lying nature? God didn't intend us to be scared. Which does not mean he intended all of us to be blabbermouths, pretending we're not scared.
Vernon, you have talked many times about jealousy. Would you kindly go into it a little bit, please?
Jealousy. Well, let me ask you, why, let's throw it right back. Why are you jealous of anyone or anything? Why do you suppose? Do you fear, for example, that other people have things that you don't have, and you're jealous of them, and you say, why should they have that home or that nice man, and I don't have one? Who is... Pardon?
I said the nice home, yes, the nice man, no.
Why did you say that? We're investigating. Jealousy comes from this first world we were talking about, comparing yourself with other people. Why do you compare yourself with anyone at all? Why? Comparing yourself with other people in jealousy, for example, keeps your delusion intact that you are you. You are not you. You are only the imaginary you. But that imaginary you, knowing that it's insecure, knowing that it's false, always has to keep bolstering itself by saying, I am inferior. I have an inferior home to that man. I have an inferior age to that person. Or superior. The opposite of jealousy is a feeling of superiority, right? Here I am 30 years old and I have that big home and I'm world famous. Everybody buys my pop records, jazz records. 30 years old, I'm a millionaire. Now he's scared. Now he's scared because, you know something we can never ever get away from? The sense that we do live as human beings in time. And time always involves change. Change from youth to old age, change from making $1 million a year when you're 30 to being broken on Skid Row when you're 40. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to live in time where it is necessary, where it's necessary on the level of the physical body? It's necessary to live in time on the intellect where it is practical to do so. Otherwise, you won't get to work on time. But our spiritual nature, our real nature, doesn't live in time at all, does it? It is above time. It is the conqueror of time. Then if at 30 you do happen to have $1 million, you can have it, but you won't be afraid of what's going to happen to you when you're 40. And that, by the way, will prevent you from being on Skid Row when you're 40.
I thought, Vernon, too, and time always runs out. If we're living in time like that.
The time that we've identified with certainly runs out. Yes, well, it changes. All right. All right. To live in time is to live in fear, and you might write that down. To live in time is to live in fear. Do you know that you, in truth, the right part of you, the true part of you, lives in eternity right now? It lives in eternity right now, which has no clock. But at this clock time of almost 8:30 this Friday evening, at that clock time, the other part of you can be in eternity if you realize it, if you understand what that means. Truth doesn't grow old. Truth doesn't get rich and then get poor. Truth isn't falsely elated and then falsely depressed, because it doesn't live in the change of time. It lives in now. Rod.
You just mentioned about the right part of us, and at the beginning of the class, you said that the right part is even in question. Well, what did you mean by that?
Oh, I meant that you don't understand it yet. It's a question. The right part is in question to you, Rod, because you don't comprehend it yet. Correct? Mm-hmm. Nod vigorously, so that's simple. We're going to talk about something that I don't believe we've ever gone into before, not in any detail anyway, which is very interesting and contributes much to your overall understanding, which is the idea of levels of understanding, levels of misunderstanding. That would be a better way to put it. Because there's so little understanding in the world, it's best to call it levels of misunderstanding, of delusion, the average level of neurosis. All of you here in the room, all of us here in this room, and every society, every country, every city has a level of misunderstanding. Juan has his, Sarah has hers, I have mine. Our level, personally, is made up of everything that we are tossed into one big, enormous jar. Wrong thoughts, delusory thoughts, frantic feelings, all kind of wrong things, and maybe one little right thought. So that when they're all our parts are tossed into this personal jar that we have, it rises to a certain level of misunderstanding. If understanding is at the top of the jar, the very top, then we are perhaps 1/10 way up. Just picture a jar with water in it, 10% filled, and that's where most of us are. Very low on the level of understanding. Now this is individual. And as I mentioned before, every country, every city, every group, every family, as a mass, as a group of people, have their average level of misunderstanding. And you can be very easily deceived about this. And so as to not be deceived from the very start, simply understand that the level of the average group, the average society, city, country, state, whatever, is very, very low. And it will be equal to the average level of everyone in that family, in that state, in that country, won't it? Do not individuals make up the average level? For example, you might think that, you might put in your mind a picture of a dozen revolutionaries in some South American country sitting in some remote room out in the country plotting to overthrow the government, and the room is loaded with machine guns and bombs, and they're sitting around with their cigars going over little plans as to how they're going to storm the presidential palace and by violence take over the government. You say these are men of violence and very, very low level, which of course is true. But what you don't know is that 50 miles away, another group of people, same number, say a dozen people, sitting in a room discussing theology or bowing their heads in prayer, they are on the same level as the revolutionaries. But you don't see this as yet because you're still deceived by appearances. You think there's a difference between a person trying to find God and a person trying to overthrow the government. They are both equally deluded, but one group has taken their delusion in this direction and another in that direction. And they could, incidentally, under certain circumstances, a member of the revolutionary group could suddenly drop that role as a revolutionary and join the prayer group. Or a member of the prayer group could drop that role and go over and join the revolutionaries. All depending upon whether the opposite group offered them more or new or more variety of ego gratification, of self-centeredness. They're very, very interchangeable. A communist can easily become a capitalist, or a capitalist a communist, as another example, if self-interest is seen to be in the opposite camp, and if there's no threat of punishment from the people you leave, for example. All right. So you see that all of us put together, this group, that group, this group right here in this room, for example, put in the same community jar with the group in New York City, with some employees down in New Orleans, all put into the same national basket, bowl, jar, make up the level of the nation, which is, again, is very low. The level of the nation, let me rephrase it. The leaders of that nation, the United States, Germany, Canada, Britain, the leaders of that country can never be above the level of the average in the country, right? That's clear, isn't it? Because you vote for what you are. You never vote for a candidate, you vote for yourself, right? And only by the law of accident could someone of a higher level occupy a public office, for example. And this is so rare, but I'll bring it up just to make it complete. Say a governor of a certain state was a man of a low-level understanding, and the lieutenant governor who ran with him was a man who had begun to get tired of life, like we are here. And he's beginning to investigate these things, but he still doesn't know enough to get out of politics. He's still in the double deal where he's pulled one way and then the other. But the governor dies or something, and he, by the law of accident, becomes governor of the state. Then you'd curiously find a person whose level is above that of the average people who voted him. But this is all on the law of accident, and it's so rare, as I say, we need to talk about it. So you see quite clearly that we always get what we are. Clear? You get the kind of people that you are. You get kind of the laws that you are. And what makes it seem as if progress is going on is that one pressure group says, I want this, that would be progress. And another pressure group over there says, I want that, and that would be progress. And what do you have? You have both, because you have first a personal insane asylum, you have a national insane asylum. This is clear, isn't it? You, by raising your level just a little bit, obviously, do not affect the national level very much. One person in 250 million doesn't raise it very much, but that is not our objective anyway. Our objective is raise my level so that I'm not insane, because I have to live with me. I don't have to live with the other 250 insane people. I tried that, and it didn't work. A couple of characteristics. I thought of a couple of illustrations that illustrated a couple points in connection with the certain features of being on a very low level of understanding, who at the time of the incident was about 25 years old, a girl. And at about the age of 25, she was a super sick girl. I'd see her sitting there, and just in an ordinary conversation about gardens or about dinner or about anything at all, I would be sitting across the room from her with the other relatives in the room, and I'd see her sitting in the chair, and her eyes would glow with hatred, and no purpose. You know, you could even see where someone was prompted by hatred, by someone making around. But she actually sat there with no prompting at all, her eyes just glowing with a deep hatred in her. She had been that badly hurt, she had not escaped from it, obviously. So she got in, her level drew her very low level, drew her to other people on that level, other 25, 30 years old, who were complete, to get right to the point, who were complete bums, no responsibility for earning their own living. They were smoking marijuana and probably drinking, probably committing crimes, at least petty theft. And she went so mad, so insane, that her parents said, this is it. They told her, we're cutting you out of our will entirely, because we know that if you inherit this house, you're going to bring your sick friends into it, and they'll steal and they'll wreck it, and you'll think that that's good fun and all that. You'll continue to destroy yourself and destroy the property that we've given to you. So we're cutting you out of the will. What we're going to do, you have 2 children, we're going to leave everything to the grandchildren, that is, to your children. And hopefully by the time we die, they'll be grown up and they'll be more responsible than you are and won't destroy the property that we've left. She couldn't figure it out. She was so indignant. She was so triply hateful. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your daughter. You're doing this to your daughter? You're cutting your own daughter out of the will? They didn't, as far as I know, they didn't even bother to try to explain, because there's no way to explain to insane people. The point being this, and now you connect this with yourself, I'll connect it with myself, with our own lives. She didn't have the slightest comprehension of how her low level attracted, yes, made necessary the behavior of her parents toward her. She called that cruelty. She called that being unloving. She couldn't see the connection. You understand what I'm getting? She couldn't see the connection between what she was, therefore the way she behaved, therefore what she attracted from her parents. All right, that's an extreme case, and I got an extreme one just to prove the point. Now you find out, and I'll find out, in my life, your life, where you are getting certain daily results. People behave toward you in a certain way because you're on a low level and you attract that. People look at you in a certain way. People drain your energy because you're on such a low level. You permit them to drain your energy. You're in certain involvements. Why are you in those involvements? Because there's something in you that is matching something of a low character in them. Therefore, you're really loving your own low nature by associating with them. It feels good to be with someone as sick as you are. If we can begin to see this, it will in itself begin the process by which we raise our level of understanding, our personal level of understanding, therefore begin to raise the kind of results, the kind of reactions that you get from the outer world and also from yourself. That's the point of that illustration. Try to see where your level of understanding, wherever it may be, is giving you results on the level of that misunderstanding. Because like does indeed attract like. We've had this simple example. You flare up at someone, which is a low-level reaction, isn't it? Action. They flare up back at you. You invited it, did you not? Because that was your level. You get in a fight with someone, either physically or verbally or mentally. You get in a fight with them because you were first fighting with yourself, and you feel it necessary to defend and protect yourself. And the insanity is going on and on and on with every event you meet, because you're always meeting yourself. You think you're meeting another person, you're meeting yourself in every other person. When you cease to meet yourself in another person, you cease to have pain in that relationship. Then if you were sane, you could meet the worst psychopath and he couldn't touch you at all because you're not a part of that. His level is down here and yours is way up here. It used to be down there, didn't it? You used to like psychopathic people. Now you don't like it in yourself, so you don't like it in them, and so you're not attracted to them, and they're not attracted to you, because insanity certainly doesn't like sanity. You know the Munster show on television? It's a comedy show, of course, very light. Herman Munster was a big, dumb, but lovable man and all that stuff. But there was something about it that made it interesting and amusing, in which, although they were monsters, one was a Frankenstein type, the woman called Lily was sort of a Dracula wife type and all that, and the grandfather was Dracula. They thought that they were normal and everyone else was abnormal. There was one incident where a report came to the Munster home that a horrible creature was running through the park at night, scaring everybody that was taking an evening stroll. And Lily, the mother of the family, heard about it, and she says, what horrible creature could be out there at night scaring people? And of course it turned out to be Herman. We think that we are normal and everybody else is abnormal.